Welcome to Lights, Camera, Cash, the podcast where creativity meets cash flow. I'm your host, Nicole Sellers, and I'm here to help you unleash the superstar within and turn your creativity and charisma into a money-making machine. Today, I am so excited to have a friend join me from across the pond. Naomi Rose is a hospitality and food business strategist and baking coach who helps people achieve baking success. With a deep passion for baking and an unwavering commitment to helping others achieve their goals, Naomi has made it her mission to help as many people as possible learn how to bake and build successful baking businesses. In 2018, Naomi made the bold decision to leave her 9-to-5 office job and pursue her dream of opening a cafe and bar. Drawing on her extensive experience in the nonprofit sector, where she honed her skills in events, communications, digital marketing, and project management, Naomi quickly established herself as a force to be reckoned with in the competitive world of food and hospitality. Today, Naomi aims to inspire and educate aspiring bakers and food entrepreneurs from all walks of life with her latest business, Baking Boss, sharing her wealth of knowledge and expertise through online workshops and her podcast, Baking Boss Kitchen Secrets. Whether you're looking to take your baking skills to the next level or build a thriving food business from scratch, Naomi is the ultimate guide and mentor, ready and willing to help you achieve your dreams. Naomi, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh my goodness. I am so excited to see you and learn so much about your business. You have two businesses, right? You started your brick and mortar after you left your 9-to-5 corporate job. You had this,
Yes.
a burning sensation to start a creative business, this baking business. Can you walk us through that process of what it was like to just finally say, I'm up and leaving and I'm going to jump right into my passion and build out my brick and mortar bakery business?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was I was doing the 9-to-5 job and it was a nice job. I turned up every day, the people were lovely, but there wasn't that challenge there. I just didn't feel that I was going to jump out of bed every morning and do something I love. It was just that kind of something that was missing inside of me. And back in 2017, I decided to sign myself up to run London Marathon. And I'd run at the time all of about 5 miles, and it's 26 miles. So it's like, oh, I'll be fine. It'll be a doddle. It wasn't. It was far from it. It was so unbelievably difficult. I ended up getting injured because I tried to train too much. And it was just a whole journey that took over my life for months. But when I got to the end of that, I thought, hang on, I thought this was going to be impossible and I've done it. So surely I should be doing more than just doing a job that I'm just kind of turning up to. And that's when it ended up going down the rabbit hole of, well, what do I want to do? And I love baking. I baked a lot. And one day we were walking my dog that we had then, Bella. We walked her along the river every morning, sat outside a coffee shop, had a coffee and went, wouldn't it be nice if we could do this? And a building in my local town became available. And we went to have a look at it while it was being renovated, because we were walking past and looking in the window, being a bit nosy. And the lady said, well, come in and have a look. And it was an old nightclub. It was horrible. It had lime green bathrooms. It had an amusement arcade in the corner. It was just awful. But underneath all of that, it was an original 1920s Art Deco building, which had the original flooring, all of these original features in it. We're like, this would be an amazing cafe. This would be a great bar area. And I could see all the live music and events. And it kind of snowballed from there, really. And we're like, we can't do this. I'm not qualified. I'm not a professional baker. I've never run my own business before. But it just sort of went from there.
I love that you had the strength and the gumption and just the perseverance to do that. I think there's a lot of creatives listening in right now who have that fear of leaving their stability and their 9-to-5 jobs, but they have that burning sensation of there's more out there for me. There's more. I was just having this conversation with a client of mine saying, I remember sitting at my desk job and thinking, this cannot be it. this cannot be the end all be all say of what my existence is meant
Yeah.
for. And you had the bravery to do that. And that's so admirable. And when you decided to kind of jump into that, I'm sure finances are a big concern for a lot of people who are starting a business. You had mentioned that you had done some crowdfunding for your business. Talk a little bit about that process, because I think that for a lot of our listeners, if they're thinking about starting their own business and they don't have the funds to do that right off the bat, how did you kind of jump into the crowdfunding?
Well, the crowdfunding actually came a little bit later on, but I mean, we had a bit of money that we knew we could do for that. I mean, certainly in my industry and sort of in the creative industry, going and doing something you love, there's always this kind of, well, I have to choose between my art and earning my income. And it's not true. It's this myth that we've created for ourselves. We don't have to do that. And when I started the cafe and opened that up, my belief was, well, as a human, as a kind of species, we are survivors. So there's always going to be a way to find out how to survive. And yes, leaving the security of a job might be quite scary, but what job is ever secure? At least I'm in control of my own destiny now, and I can actually make that path. So that's where I kind of got to. When I did the crowdfunding, it was a little bit later on because I had the cafe bar and we went through COVID and we are going through COVID.
Mm.
And I realised there was something missing in my town, and it was a bakery. And I love baking bread. It's just something very therapeutic about working with the dough. And when I opened the cafe, I couldn't do that. I just did not have the capacity. So the bakery was sort of a bit of a side hustle. It was the bit I did on the side because it's what I love to do. And I used to bake it. I had a small range oven in our cafe kitchen because we just did service food and cakes, so we didn't need a massive kitchen. But we started baking loaves of bread in this tiny range kitchen oven, and people kept going, "Where do you get your bread from?" And I'm like, "Well, we make it. Can you do us some?" And it kind of started to snowball from there. And in COVID in the UK, we had this option called a resilience loan. So for people that were sort of getting back up on their feet again, they could go to the bank and ask for a resilience loan. And I went and thought, right, okay, well, I don't have the cash in the bank to do this. So I'll go to the bank. And they went, well, no, because you're not making a profit. I'm like, I've come through a pandemic and I'm breaking even. I'm doing all right. But they said no. I was like, well, what's resilience loan for then? And someone said to me, well, why don't you do crowdfunding? And it never even occurred to me. I thought, actually, this is a really brilliant way of doing it because I will know if it's something my local town wants because the customers will invest if they want it, and I will get the bakery I want. And what's even better is that when I open the doors, I've got customers ready to go because they've already invested in the product. So this is brilliant. So to do the crowdfunding, I put a strategy. I actually did have a strategy, but it was a big PR campaign to actually make it work. And I thought, well, I'll just go for it. I had 30 days to raise the money because that's how long you have with a lot of the crowdfunding campaign. I'll just see what happens. I asked for £15,000 from my local community, and we raised 17. So, and over 300 people backed us. It was incredible. We're just absolutely blown away.
That's
So,
amazing. And having that community come together, and like you said, it's already a built-in audience, which is just
yeah.
brilliant, like you said. And when you started to see the crowds come in, what was that feeling like? What were you feeling emotionally when you saw that support from your community?
Oh, it was absolutely incredible. It was a small town in the UK, and it was just like it's just me. I've come from doing a 9 to 5 job, and I don't have the qualifications, and I just never really expected that kind of support from people I knew, but people I didn't know, and we had anonymous donations that were fairly large as well, so I never knew where they came from. I was completely blown away. My husband actually he designed a plaque. He does laser cutting, so he actually wrote everybody's names who donated, and we had it up on our wall, and it was like that real reminder of my business is actually more than just me now. It's a community, and that was a real sense of achievement, really. So it was very emotional when I opened it because I just never thought it would be something I would ever be able to do in that sense again. Something that I'd kind of gone, I couldn't do this because I just don't have the money. But
And not only
actually,
that, like you said, you didn't have a baking background. It's not like you were a certified master baker starting something like this,
no.
and I think that that's so inspiring because we all get imposter syndrome. We all think maybe we're just
Yes.
not qualified enough or good enough or have enough experience. And the truth is, nobody is. Nobody ever feels 100% ready to jump into something like this. And I
No.
love what you said about, what business is stable. Even if you're working for somebody else, that's not stable either. And I think we all come to that conclusion when we're either laid off or we're working around the clock for somebody else. At least when we have our own business or side hustle, we know that money's coming to us. And yes, it is a lot of hard work to own your own business, but you are proof that if you love something enough and you're passionate enough about it and you're driven enough, you can make it happen. You can find a way. And what's really cool is that you won some type of award while you were there for your bread. Is that right?
Yes. So 3 months after opening the cafe, the bakery, it was about, I think, about 5 or 6 weeks after, Britain's Best Loaf Awards entries came up, and I was contacted by the organisers, said, would you like to enter? And I thought, well, it'll be a nice day out. We'll go and network with some bakeries. We get to go to a big food expo, because who doesn't love going to a food event? I absolutely love it. And we'll get a bit of feedback on what our loaves are like and what we can do better in the future. I kind of went in with oh, why not? We'll just give it a go. And I didn't tell my bakers in my team straight away, because I knew they would just be like, what have you done? They'll be terrified, because they're definitely, anytime there was a camera there, then they were completely camera shy. They just didn't want to be like in the limelight. So I waited until an opportune moment and told them. And yes, they were absolutely terrified. I said, look, it's a day out. We'll have a road trip. We're going to go and meet lots of amazing bakeries, the best in the country. And we prepared our loaves, went up there, and our name got called out, and we were just we just were not expecting it in a million years. And there were so many entries, and we couldn't believe that we'd only been going 3 months, and yet somehow we'd won. Even my head baker just turned to me and went, are they joking? Are they got to be joking? I'm like, no, we've won. And yes, it was such an incredible achievement. And actually, the journey to kind of get us there, we'd all worked really hard to get to that point. And even sourdough, I was not a sourdough baker, but I knew it was something that was trendy and people would want. And I tried sourdough in the past and it failed. And I spent best part of 2 months with my head baker trying to work out how to get our sourdough to work. And I wouldn't open the bakery until it was there. And we spent hours and hours working on this sourdough. And our white loaf, our white farmhouse loaf, was the loaf that actually won the awards. But our sourdough came in third in the end. And that was because we put slightly too much flour on top as a dusting.
Sourdough is not easy, and I am not a baker at
It's
all,
not
but just
easy.
reading the recipes, because there's a lot of steps that go into sourdough. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And when it came to it, I mean, we recorded every step, every single bake we did. We wrote everything down, and we were like, you know what? We've got to put our bakers' heads aside, and now we're scientists. We're going to get the lab coats on, and we're going to try
Right.
this as an experiment. And eventually it just clicked, and it was the difference of 25 grams of water. It was so minor, but we eventually just got it to work, and it was fantastic. We got so much great feedback after that, and it got easier as time went on to kind of figure out and work with it and all of that sort of thing. But there were many, many hours and many flat loaves that came out of the
But
oven before then. It was not,
yeah, what an
but it was
accomplishment
worth
that
it.
was, though. What an accomplishment that was for working so hard toward
Yeah.
that goal. And I want to get into what happened when you had to shut down the brick and mortar, because I can imagine it was heartbreaking, devastating after putting so much time, effort, and energy into it. It was such a beautiful experience, but eventually the rising energy costs had caught up to you and you had to shut your doors.
Yeah.
And that's what led you to your online business. Walk us through that process of what that was like to finally have to say, you know what, we're going to hang up our baking coats. We're going to hang this up right now. But there's another adventure around the corner for us. It's not over. We just have to shift gears. And so many of us are going through that right now. Tell us about that.
Yeah.
Like what you're hearing so far? Then you're going to love all the content and support inside TV Hosting Academy's Green Room membership. Member perks include small group coaching with me, Nicole Sellers, access to industry insiders who share all the secrets to on-camera success, and a monthly think tank session with a tribe of like-minded creatives. Check out all the details in the show notes. See you inside the Green Room.
Yes, I mean, having to close a business is devastating for anybody. There is no easy way to do it, and sometimes it's just you can have everything right. And at the time, it was the absolute last decision. I employed quite a lot of people. I didn't want them to lose their jobs, but equally, everything was just going up. Everything was getting a bit harder. This time last year, I'd actually had to take a few weeks off from the business completely because I'd burnt out, because I was trying to cover all of the gaps of all of the different situations. For a period, being a bakery, we couldn't get flour. Our suppliers went from a 3-day lead time for delivery to 14 days overnight. And I'm like, I can't. How am I supposed to find the amount of flour I need? And I'll be going around supermarkets at 10:30 at night trying to find the amount of flour we needed for the next day. There was just so many different things that came in a perfect storm. And particularly going from that high of winning the awards, knowing sort of what was coming down the tracks. Obviously, it's a really hard thing to have to do, but sometimes you have to separate the emotional and the passion for what you do and think, well, I'm still a business. I'm still whatever, even though I might be doing all the roles in my business right now, I'm still at the bottom of it, the CEO, and I have to do what's right for the business. And I just didn't have the cash flow to necessarily support it beyond what as far as we went, which was earlier this year when I decided to close it. And that was the reality, because we were still quite young when we went into COVID. We hadn't been able to kind of stockpile any of that money, and the money we did kept us going through COVID. So we'd kind of done very well to get so far. Emotionally, it was a really hard thing to do, because you think, I should have done better, I could have done this differently, I could have done that. But reflecting on it now, there's no way I could have, arrogant. I was being quite arrogant about it, because I think, how could I beat a global pandemic and take it on my own for the small corner of my world? And I couldn't.
So
And it
many,
was just,
yeah.
that was the reality.
And so many
But
people were in your shoes, and it was so hard. I lost my studio. I think everybody was trying to hang on for so long, and it just dragged out longer than anyone had anticipated. And as business owners, we always have our customers and our clients at the forefront of whatever we do, and we want to make sure that we're
yes,
serving them to the best of our ability. So we always have that on our shoulders as well. But I went through the same emotional roller coaster of, okay, when is enough enough? When do I close the doors and say, we have to take this online, or find another way to serve our clients to the best of our abilities? And that's what Baking Boss is to you. Is that right? I want to hear more
yeah.
about Baking Boss, because you moved all of your knowledge and your expertise online, which was brilliant. And now you have a large following for your podcast. So tell us about your online business now, taking everything that you've learned from the brick and mortar shop to the online space.
Yes, well, I think having gone through all of that sort of journey with my brick and mortar business, it's like, I don't want all of that knowledge, everything I've learned, and I did it all myself. Google was my best friend, although sometimes it was not very helpful, just to add. So Google doesn't always have the right answers, but I did everything through Google. I learned everything myself. I taught everything myself, and I made so many mistakes along the way. I mean, it was a great learning curve and experience, but equally, I never found anyone that really understood what it was like to run a small cafe or baking business or home baking business that could mentor me in the business side of what to do, how to do it. There's a lot of people that would kind of help you with support with general business, or if you're a big brand wanting a big restaurant, or a product, like sending a product to market, like a chocolate bar or something like that. There's plenty out there, but no one that I could really find that could help understand the intricacies of a small baking business. And that's why I wanted to set up Baking Boss, because there are lots of people out there, and particularly in the hospitality industry, it's service with a smile everywhere. So all you see is all of these places looking like they're doing amazing, but behind the scenes, there's a business owner that was probably like me, kind of going, I just need someone to help me here. And that's why I've started the Baking Boss, is to be that person I can go, I can listen because I've been there, I've done that, and I'm willing to share what I've learned. And it should be a bit more of an open community, and we can support and talk to each other and be able to learn together, and we'll become better business owners as a result. And plus, I still love to bake, so I still do online baking classes, and I'll be releasing a recipe book very soon as well. But yeah, that's why I kind of started the business online, because then I could reach a lot more people, and people then have a community they can go to when they get home. On the computer, there's someone there waiting for them, able to hear what's happening, what's going on. If they've got a question, they've got someone they can get access to ask that question. So that's exactly what I wanted to do, really.
That's brilliant. And you know what I find so fascinating is that you found a hole in the industry. You found something lacking. Like you said, you could not find someone to help you build up your business, or a mentor that had gone through what you had gone through. And in the search of finding that person, you said, well, I'm going to be that person for somebody else. And I think that that's something that's very valuable to be shared for everyone out there listening, that if you have something of value to share, your expertise, your knowledge, and you don't see somebody else out there doing that, or you can do it differently than someone else, if you're not out there serving your community, somebody else is going to do it in a different way. So don't be afraid to just start, even if it's an online course, or it's private coaching, or if it's a community, a membership, something where you are starting the conversation about what you do and how you can help serve. I mean, that is just, I think the start of something beautiful, especially because you're passionate about it. So now that you have this online business, Baking Boss, are they mostly made up of workshops or courses? Talk a little bit about what you offer there.
So I do a little bit of everything. So I have two different kind of communities, if you like. So I've got I have the baking club, which is, we talk baking most of the time, and I love talking about baking. And again, I learned a lot from scratch, and I learned a lot from my team in my business. They had a huge amount of knowledge in baking. So I wanted to share some of that knowledge with everybody else, which is why I have the baking club, where we share recipes, top tips, and I do live demos. So I go around to various shows in the UK and do live demos and that sort of thing. So like I mentioned, a bit of a sneak preview, I'll have a recipe book coming out, but I'll also be doing online masterclasses and workshops and courses coming up soon as well. So they'll be launching in the near future. And then I've got the business side of it, where of course we still talk about baking because we still love baking, but it's a bit more about the nitty gritty of how to run businesses, what goes on, what you can do, all of those kinds of bits of support. So again, I offer the one-to-ones in those, but I also have got a course coming up which I'm launching in November. There'll be masterclasses, and there probably will be a book coming out at some point, probably next year, just for telling a bit about my story of what it's like actually in the kitchen, what goes on behind the scenes, some of the stuff you get asked to make, which is all, I'm always surprised at some of the bizarre customer requests, which everybody's different, I understand that. So, but again, it's just sharing a little bit of knowledge of what I've learned along the way and how I've got there. And if someone's looking to do it, if I can, anyone really can. It's just having someone maybe to help and guide them along the way to do that. So that's quite a few different things that I offer there as well. And I have free guides, so you can go and download a few free guides on my website as well to help you either in baking or in business. So there's a few selections of things that people can kind of get their hands on.
Yeah, I love that it's not just about baking too, because anyone who's looking to start an online business, you have to have several streams coming in. So whether it's the courses, the membership, the master classes, the workshops, the one-on-one coaching. And I love that you did that despite not being a certified baker or coach. You said, I'm taking my experience and my knowledge and my successes, and I'm turning it into a learning platform. And I think that that should be inspirational, motivational to anybody who wants to take their knowledge online. You don't necessarily need a ton of degrees or, 20 years of experience to do something. If you have found success in one area of your life, you are more than qualified to share your experiences and to guide other people along the way. So I commend your bravery for that. And what was that transition like, moving from that brick and mortar to the online space? Did you find that now that you have less of the overhead, it's a lot less stressful for you? Do you find that it's a little bit more, beneficial, or there's more of a profit going online?
Definitely. I mean, from the brick and mortar business to here, I don't have the same level of staff because I had 17 members of staff under me at one point. So when you've got 17 people, it's not a big business, but it's equally a lot of time it's taken up with sort of managing staff. So, and I've always managed staff, so that is definitely the biggest change. But yes, I mean, there's definitely more opportunities to make profit because you have got less overheads. You've not got to suddenly make lots of money before you even start to take a salary or a profit out of a business, and when you've got bricks and mortar. But there's so many, I think the thing with having an online business is having the diversity, or even a brick and mortar business is being able to have that diversity of income coming in from different sources. So it could be that you kind of had the low, medium, and high ticket items, but they're all different things that then can help support your business and be able to give you different revenue streams. Because I think now, and certainly the online world has changed since COVID, it is a very different space from what it used to be before. You have to diversify and be flexible and be adaptable. And use the great thing about online is you can look at the numbers, you can look at the data. You can't always guarantee footfall into a business through your door, but on the online space you can look at all of the evidence base of how everything's selling, what's doing well, how many people are looking at your site, and then use that as information as to, right, I need to figure out how I get more people engaged, how I do this, how I do that. So you can be a little bit more smarter. So it's a different way of working and having to adapt a little bit more. But it's, and I've loved both. I love doing the brick and mortar and I like doing the online stuff. And it's nice to I get to learn about people in different areas, all corners of the world. Some of my audience are in Australia, some of them are in America, some of them are in the UK. So I get to find out about different businesses from everywhere, which is great knowledge to learn for me and my followers.
Yes, I love having an online business just to meet people from around the world and have
Yeah.
that built-in community. Are there any go-to tools that you really like that has helped advance your online business? Are there any platforms or apps that you're using right now that you find are really helpful to boosting your business?
I I mean, I use a lot of social media, so social media does help. I mean, podcasting is a great thing to do, and it's certainly a less saturated market than a lot of other areas. So if you've kind of got a bit of you like to talk, then a podcast is a great option. For my social media, I use a tool called Canva, and it's a brilliant tool. It's got lots of templates, but you can design up posters or social media posts or emails in it. You can do so much with that, and it's really low cost, but it takes all of that. If you're not a designer or not a social media tech expert, it's a brilliant tool because you can just say, I want something that looks like this. You can type in what you want to write and it does it for you. It's amazing. So there's some great tools out there like that that make your life a lot easier.
Yes, I know. I'm always on the lookout for new apps and new software, and I use Canva every day. I love Canva. It
Yeah,
has made my life
it's
so much
perfect.
easier.
Yeah, I
And
know.
then, yeah, that in combination with some AI tools, a lot of your
Yeah,
newsletter and your copy and things that you can use to just get at least the template up and then jazz it up with your own verbiage. But I want to jump
yeah.
into the podcast quickly before we wrap up. Talk about your podcast. It's been around for quite a bit, and have you seen kind of a rise in listenership or viewership if it's on YouTube
Yeah.
since the podcast, and how has that really driven your business?
Yes, the podcast is actually, it was something I was kind of more testing out. I didn't really launch it properly. I didn't put any sort of thought into it. I just went up one day, oh, I'm going to do a podcast. And I have an Apple Mac, so I use GarageBand. So it's really low cost and it gets uploaded through Buzzsprout. And it was more of a test to see if it was something that would work. And it's doing really well, actually. It's steadily growing and you can see the downloads are starting to double now on month. So it's certainly getting more traction. And I've had verbally as well as written on my social, some really great feedback from it. So I know it's resonating with the listeners, and I always ask them for content and, get feedback from them, because I really want it to be useful information. And I try and, some podcasts there are lots of really useful podcasts out there. Mine is getting into the nitty gritty of practical stuff of the how to, because sometimes you just want someone to tell you how to do something. So in the world of people that want to turn their baking passion into a bakery or a market store or whatever that might be, their zone of genius is baking. That's what they know. But business is a whole other skill set, which not everybody has. And suddenly you're having to learn all these new things. And when you go into business, often your passion becomes the small bit of what a business involves. So that's why the podcast was really there, was to sort of help with all of those bits, so it's not such a painful experience for some people if they just haven't done a business before or run it or understand the technical stuff or what goes on behind the scenes. So it was there to give people a bit of a glimpse of, hey, this is how you can do some stuff. So yes, and it's definitely been growing, and I love doing the podcast, but I do it weekly. I think having something that you do regularly really does help as well, because then your listeners know when it's coming. And in the new year, the plan is to start getting a few more guests on as well. So I'll be able to speak to other experts in the field as well as other baking business owners too.
I love that you jumped in before you were ready, because nobody's ever going to be 100% ready to launch anything like a podcast or a TV show or even a segment. And we talk a lot about this at TV Hosting Academy and also on my podcast, that the first step is always going to be the hardest, but you're growing. Each and every week that you're releasing your podcast, like you said, you're getting feedback, you're asking questions, you're asking your community, what are the things that you want to learn more about? And that's how you grow. There's no one right way to launch a podcast. Everyone has their own way of doing things. Some people will promote for weeks and weeks and weeks before the launch. I just jumped in as well. I said, you know what? I'm a perfectionist, but I'm going to jump in because I know the first one's going to be a mess. The second one will be better. And then we're going to start to get into a groove. So I commend you for doing it that way, because I think that solidifies confidence in other people that they don't need such a set plan. It has to be obviously something that you are passionate about talking about, or you have a community that is looking for something in that niche, which you already had. So you had the community, you have the knowledge and the expertise, you were filling that gap in the market, which is really how you kind of decipher what's going to hit and what's not. So congratulations on the podcast. Tell us the name of it one more time so all of our listeners can tune in.
Yeah, it's Baking Boss Kitchen Secrets, and it's on all of the major platforms. So just go Google it and find it, or go onto my website at bakingboss.not/podcast.
Wonderful. So we will all be looking out for you and your podcast, going to your website. And thank you so much for coming on here and having this conversation with me. It was very inspirational, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. It's been great being on the show, and thank you for having me.